privilege, I'm going to read a few poems from The Last Straw. This is a sonnet from a sequence of sonnets on turf cutting. Bank. There was a rhythm to the cut and catch. He cut, you looked, he swung, it flew, you caught. He cut, you looked, he swung, it flew, you caught. A form of talk that obviated talk. Work made all speech useless, so the silence entered into us and passed between us, and became with each spit one spit deeper, a ghost bank growing on the spreading ground. When it came to it in the funeral parlour, unsure as yet our job of work was done, I could not keep my two eyes off him, and kept, from habit, a slane's length from him, not to be caught on the end of his swing, in case he had one last good swing in him. Another poem from the same sequence is about a famous silence that occurred in a recording between Ciarán Mac Mahuna and the fiddle master Pádraig O'Keeffe. Where the bog is. It being a name he had never not known. When Mac Mahuna asked Pádraig O'Keeffe on Radio Éireann where O'Keeffe was from, without missing a beat he answered Glan Táin, a name that came like a tune or an air. But when Mac Mahuna, being Mac Mahuna, enquired of the master where Glan Táin was, seconds were an age without a word being said, as O'Keeffe, for what might have been the first time, thought about the place he thought of as home. And in that pause, a slane's man straightened up, to clean from the blade of his slain the scraws, a whole summer's worth of good turf dried. Then, where the bog is, O'Keeffe replied. There's one about the Land Commission, which I should read because we're in Galway and I've just come from County Meath, so there's a strong relationship there. So the Galway connection here is Roundstone and Clonbur. The Land Commission. Most had never been further east in their lives than the city of the tribes. She cried every mile of the road on the bus they strapped the roof timbers of the old house to, because it wasn't right to see, like tiny fields, those clay floors open to the sky, and hardened in time, for the children's sake, her heart. In his 9th and final decade, if you ask him, he'll say the thing he missed most, and misses still, is the mountain commonage that he learned every inch of as a child, where they fattened geese. She didn't believe the fish the merchant brought to Stamullen could be fresh, coming as they did from far Balbriggan, because the sea, a stone's throw from her own back door in Roundstone, was where she was accustomed to keeping them. The old man resigned himself to being buried among strangers. Her daughters are her fortune. Wherever they sleep, Glasgow, North Dakota, Philadelphia, they answer her in their first tongue, to the back doors of their dreams, the sea comes. And this poem, the title of it is The Crane Bar, from a sequence of poems about public houses. It's been described as a pub crawl of the country, which is probably a fair assessment. The Crane Bar, Galway. Nobody has anything to say to anybody else who is there. Mid-afternoon, a handful of souls pacing themselves, minding their business. It is overcast and rain is promised, or it is horsing down in buckets. A woman stands and announces, "I won't go back to Limerick and nobody can make me." Then resumes her seat, her drink, and we in our silence drink to not going back, and raise in our hearts our glasses to nobody being forced to go anywhere they do not want to, until peace reigns again in the whole of the Crane Bar and in the Little Crane. This last one is something that happened outside the Tyveark on Middle Street back in April of 1997. Samuel Monash was reading, or what he was doing was something akin to reading. Everything was in his head. There was no paper, except for the little piece of paper he stole from my book. Samuel Monash in Galway, 19th of April 1997. I know what you did, Samuel, because I have the books. That large format collected from Orono, Maine, its tiny poems. And that blood axe selected, with the footage of you on a disc, in your element, in your railroad walk-up on Thompson Street. The absence of paper when you read at the Tyveark was thrilling, because if you missed a beat once or drew a blank, the reading was finished. The only slip you made happened outside afterwards, when you were signing my Penguin Modern Poets Volume 7. With my elderly but strong blessing, you wrote. Then, after Samuel, instead of Monash, you wrote Galway, and noticing the slip, proceeded to tear out the piece of the page on which it appeared, then rolled it into a ball to reduce it later with a match to ash. I didn't know then why it could not be allowed to continue to exist. And then I watched the movie, the bit where a phrase comes out of your mouth slightly imperfectly, and you say, "Will I say it again to get the mistake out?" Which becomes the most beautiful thing you say, because it reveals you believe the world can be left unblemished. I take down the volume, where you left your first name and a blessing, and took away the rest, to touch that damaged page and be convinced I didn't dream. On Middle Street, on a spring day, the city gave you its name.